Hi Flosstube, my name is Jessie, and this is my third attempt at my first Flosstube video. It's going to be my final attempt. You guys are getting whatever I happen to get on video. The first time I was really awkward and uncomfortable. I'm not really an in front of the camera kind of person, and I rambled a lot. It was a really long video, and it was really disconnected. I was jumping back and forth from topic to topic. So I decided to try it again after my kids got home. They've been out doing activities all morning, and normally, they're older, they're happy, they do their own thing, and I do my own thing, and they're not particularly needy. I was expecting, one, maybe two interruptions. I think I had 6 or 7 interruptions. It's very unusual, so especially in such a short time span. It was like 30 minutes, and they had interrupted me like 6 or 7 times, so I'm going to try this one more time. I have begged them for 30 minutes of peace and quiet. I just finished dinner, so they're down there eating, so we should be good to go. So, like I said, my name is Jessie. I'm a fairly new, well, I don't know if you would call me new. I'm a fairly inexperienced stitcher. I learned to stitch about 15, 20 years ago, but it was never really something that I picked up or caught on to. I didn't continue it on. I really put it down for 20 or so years. Picked it up again when I found a pattern I loved, and I did, I think, one project that took forever to finish, and then put it down again, and then picked it up again and put it down again. So I don't have very many finishes, and most of them are just recently in the last 6 months since I found Flosstube. So thank you. You guys are inspiring. I thought I would start with a Know Your Needleworker tag just because that keeps me on a train of thought, and it would probably introduce me a lot better than me just rambling on. It would keep me on topic. So that's what I'm going to try to do this time. So number 1 is, where do you live? I live in Olathe, Kansas. It's in the Kansas City metropolitan area. I'm south of Kansas City, maybe 20, 30 minutes, depending on the traffic that day. So a fairly big city when you look at it as a whole, but Olathe in general, even though it's got 200,000, 250,000 people, it still has a pretty small community feel to it. I run into people I've known for years at the grocery store and things like that, just because, well, I don't know why, just because, I guess because I've lived here for so many years. I guess I know a lot of people just randomly, but it gives it that smaller community feel, but I'm still so close to a big metropolitan that everything I want or need is available, so it's kind of convenient. I like it. I don't know that I would ever really want to live anywhere else. If I did, it would still be in the metropolitan area. Maybe just one of the different suburbs, though. But number 2, what do you do for a living? I work in the accounting department. I do all the processing, invoicing, things like that. So I have a desk job, data entry, basically. Accounting is just a fancy name for data entry. Do I have any children? Yes, I have 2. I have almost 14-year-old. Her birthday's in 2 months. And then I have an 11-year-old. Do I have any pets? We have 1 cat. That was an accident. I found him outside, and I felt bad because it was cold and it was snowing, and this poor cat was covered in snow, so I took him in intending to find his owner. It was pretty obvious. Well, not he. She. It's a girl. It was pretty obvious she was a house cat, was used to people, was used to being indoors, did not know how to cope in the outdoors, in the cold, in the snow. So I was really hoping we could find her owner, and then when we couldn't, I just didn't have the heart to turn her out. So I ended up keeping a cat, which I later found out was pregnant, and had a litter of 6. I had 6 kittens. So, yeah, that will never happen again. I love cats, love kittens, but 6 of them was a whole lot. They're really cute, though. My kids almost had me convinced to keep one. What are your other hobbies besides stitching? I like to be a crafty person in general. And my other hobbies then, crafting, mainly would be knitting. I learned to crochet first, but I prefer the look of knitting more, so I can do both, but the majority of the time I knit. Right now I am on socks. Socks seem to be my thing. They're easy. I have the pattern memorized, so I don't have to look it up. They're small and portable. I can carry around. I can stop it and start it whenever I want. Um, so I've been knitting a lot of socks lately, just because it's so easy. Other hobbies, I like to read. I can sit and read for an entire day with no problem, just as easily as I could sit and stitch, sit and knit. What is your favorite movie? I have a lot of favorites. I don't know that I could pinpoint a favorite. So I thought for all of these favorite questions, I would just give you kind of a list of some of the things that I like. This is by no means even close. I'm sure there's some of my favorites that I've forgotten. So let's see, some of my favorites. I love The Princess Bride. That one doesn't matter where it's at in a movie, I will turn it on. I don't care if it's the last 10 minutes of the movie, I will turn it on and watch the last 10 minutes. Audrey Hepburn movies, I love hers. It doesn't seem to matter which one. I love all of them. The movie Love Actually with Hugh Grant, I love his voice. There's a lot of Hugh Grant movies that I would put in my favorites list. And Sandra Bullock too. I think Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock, they're both amazing comedians. Not in the traditional sense of the word. They're not stand-up comedians, but they're funny. They play off of each other really well. Like 2 Weeks Notice, that was a good movie. And Christmas movies. Sorry, I have a list down here with questions and stuff on it, notes, to try to keep myself on track. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'll try to make sure I look at the camera. So Christmas movies is my other thing. It doesn't seem to matter what Christmas movie it is, if it's a new one, a classic one. I like the Hallmark Channel at Christmas time. I think like the beginning of November, they will start playing Christmas movies and play nothing but Christmas movies all the way through until January. So I like the Hallmark Channel at Christmas time. I don't watch it any other time of the year though. But I'm a sucker for Christmas movies. I can't resist them. So what is your favorite TV show? Okay, that one I think if I had to pick one favorite, I would say The Walking Dead right now. That seems to be my big one. I'm waiting for the next season, or the finish of the season, whatever, to start in February. It's not a TV show that I really thought that I would ever enjoy. I'm not really big into zombies and blood and guts, but somebody convinced me to watch the first episode, and I was just hooked. It's really a story about people trying to survive, and there just happens to be zombies in it. So I even got my parents watching it. I have got them hooked. I will convince anybody to watch that TV show. So that's one of my favorites. But I also like a lot of the more comedy, more lighthearted shows that you don't really have to watch in order. I like Big Bang Theory. That one's really funny. Modern Family or Blackish. Those are ones you can just turn on and you've never seen it before, but you get it. And you don't have to know what's going on. The Walking Dead, if you missed last week's episode, you don't know what's going on this week. So, well, let's see. What are some other ones? Elementary. That's a good one. And I just recently found Sherlock, and I watched that on Netflix. I wish there were more episodes of that available. And then on Netflix, I have no problem just turning on something in the morning and just leaving it on, especially if it's an old classic I've seen. So I watched Gilmore Girls that way. I would just turn it on and leave it on in the background, whether I was cleaning the kitchen or sitting on the couch watching it or doing laundry. It was just kind of on because I've seen them before. So Friends, that's another one. I love watching old Friends reruns. So those are some of the TV shows I like. Books. I like Stephen King books. I like his older works a little bit more than I like his newer works. His Dark Tower series with the gunslinger, that's one I want to reread again. It's been quite a few years since I've read that series. It was really good. The end made me so frustrated, though. I wanted to pick it up and read it all over again at the same time, as I was so upset and frustrated. I never wanted to read it again, and I think that really says something for the writing and the storytelling. So let's see, who else I like. Michael Crichton or James Patterson, um, Anna Green Gables. I like a lot of the, oh, what do they call it? Is that dystopian? Things like Divergent, like the futuristic kind of things. The Giver was one of my favorites. Anthem, that's another one. It's very similar to The Giver. A lot of those are very similar. So there's just a couple. And favorite music, I listen to so many weird things. I'm not allowed to put my music on shuffle when people are over because I have such a weird eclectic taste. I'll be listening to an Eminem song and then it'll shuffle over and start to play Harry Chapin. And then it'll shuffle again and we'll be listening to Lady A. So it switches everywhere from oldies, not the oldies they play on the radio right now. That's like 70s and 80s. I go like 50s and 60s. We're talking the Mamas and the Papas and the Temptations and the Beatles. The original, like the beginning of the Beatles. Although they're good all the way until the end. But I also listen to country music. I listen to pop. Not so much into rap music, although I'll pick a couple songs that are, I don't know, they're kind of rap, but they're a little bit more on the poppy side. Pop music side. So that's kind of what I like to listen to. And then one word that describes me. This is the third time I've done this, and I still don't have one word. So I guess maybe indecisive would be a good word. I can't pick one, so I don't know that anybody can really be described by one individual word. So, okay. In an effort to keep this short, I was going to do the Joy of Cross Stitching tag, but I'm going to skip that. I'll do that another time. I might do that in my next video. I thought I would show you kind of my whips and my finishes. There's not very many of them, so I'm going to do them all. And I thought maybe I would just go in order of what I started. So, I learned to stitch when I was about 8 years old. And just a very small project, I think, more to get me out of my family's hair than anything. We were at a holiday family gathering of some sort, and I was bored, and my aunt sat me down and was like, here, do this. I had probably brought my book with me, but I had finished it. I don't know, I used to read R.L. Stine books a lot. I really liked those, but I could finish a book in a night. Not even like an all day, like in an evening, I could finish one of those books. So I probably took a book with me and finished it. And then I was bored and I was bugging the adults. I didn't have a lot of cousins around that were the same age as me. So I think my aunt taught me how to stitch just out of sheer, I don't even know what you would call it, just out of frustration. Just, child, go away. The grown-ups are trying to have a conversation right now, and you need to go entertain yourself, kind of thing. So I finished that, and I don't know, it was just a little strawberry. I remember that. It was 3 colors. It was red and black and green. It wasn't difficult or hard. It was very small, maybe 25 stitches across, 25 tall. Finished it in no time, but I finished it, and I remember thinking, like, well, what good was this? It was fun to do, but now what am I going to do with that? I'm not going to do anything with that. And looking through the pattern book that she had given me, it was a bunch of motifs. And I mean, it was things that an 8-year-old kid doesn't want to stitch. So I put it down, and I never really picked it back up again. She was the only one in my family who cross-stitched. And she, you know, it wasn't really encouraged or like, hey, let's go and find you a pattern. It wasn't like pushed. Had I probably said, I really like this, can you help me? Absolutely, she would have, but it is what it is. So maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was at the store trying to find something to do while I was waiting for my daughter at ballet. We had hours and hours and hours of waiting ahead because she was in a production. And she was doing 2 productions that day. And so I probably showed up at the theater at noon. And we weren't ready to go home until 10. And I had to do the same thing the next day. And I had already read my book and I'd already worked on my knitting. I was just looking for something else to do. So at the craft store, I came across a pattern, a little dimensions kit for Live Simply. And I really enjoyed the pattern. I liked it. It wasn't, a lot of times I would go and look at cross stitch patterns and say, oh, that's not anything I would stitch or enjoy having hung on the wall. But I really liked this, how simplistic it was, how much more modern it was than some of the other patterns I had seen in the past. It wasn't really cartoonish. It just spoke to me. So I picked it up and I learned very quickly, as you can see by how much fabric is at the bottom and no fabric is at the top. I learned that you cannot do counted cross stitch when you're in a room with 300 screaming and running and stir crazy kids. So I was taught when you start a project, you fold it in half, well, you find the center and you start there. But it was like right in the middle of this green stem, and I didn't want to start in the middle of the stem. I wanted to start at either the top or the bottom. And well, it must have been the top because the bottom is pretty much in the middle now. So I had counted up on my fabric to the top of the flower stem and started from there. Well, by the time I had figured out that I obviously counted too many, I lost count or started over again. I was not going to redo this project. It was just too late. I was so close to finished. So, I don't know. It's not a family heirloom. It's not anything the kids are going to pass down through generations. But I can't frame it like this either. So it's just been sitting. I've seen some finishing videos where people talk about, what is it, that poster board or whatever that has the sticky on it, which is maybe not the best for your crosswork. But like I said, this isn't an heirloom. And if I just stick it down on the fabric, trim it up close, and then put like a backer board or a mat board, something that goes right up to those top stitches and bottom, so it fills the frame completely, I think I would be happy with that. And then it won't matter that there's not a lot of fabric here because it would be stuck down and secure. But I mean, this is 6-7 years old. It's not unfraying at all. So I'm not too worried about it. Not for now. So that was the first thing I did. And then it was probably 3 or 4 years. Oh, excuse me. I gotta reach. Things are out of frame now. It was probably 3 years ago or so. I found another kit that happened to be on clearance and I liked the design of it. So I picked it up. It was a lot bigger than what I thought, but I'm going to put a picture up here because I don't have the original packaging it came with. So here's a picture of what it'll look like when it's completed. Okay, and then here is European Bistro. It's a Dimensions Gold Kit. I'm not going to unroll this for you because this frame is horrible. It's a very inexpensive frame, and the scroll and the wing nut, I can't tighten them anymore, but these scrolls come unwound very easily. So I think if I unwound this to show you, it would be difficult to get any tension back in it. So, but everything on this left-hand side of the picture is done. So I'm going to put a picture in right here. That is a picture I posted on Instagram of what I had completed right before I put this all together, or moved the frame and put it where it's at now. So, and then needle minders, I make my own. So this is just, let me find a way to hold this. It's hard to hold. There we go. Put my needle on it. This is a bead. It's supposed to be jewelry Found it in the jewelry making section. And I just like the look of it. Oh, there, see? And my needle's going right through the hole in the middle of it. You're supposed to spread, string your thread through. So, and then just some rare earth magnets on the back. Nice and solid, hold it in. So, European Bistro. Like I said, I started about 3 years ago, and I was always told you had to start in the middle. Find the center, work from the middle out, blah, blah, blah. Everybody else has heard it. So I was really not enjoying this project. As you can see, that's why the weird shaping of it. Everything over here is done, but this is such a weird shape because I had started in a hoop from here and worked out. And I was just frustrated with it, and I kept putting it down and putting it down. And once I found Flosstube, I don't know, it just makes me feel silly now, but it's like, duh. There's no cross-stitch police that's going to come and arrest you if you start in the corner, right? As long as you know you have the fabric for it. There's no rule that says you cannot start in the corner. They recommend you start in the center so that you know you have enough fabric. I mean, that's the main thing. But I knew I had enough fabric, so, and gridding. I used a pin on this. I probably wouldn't do that again. Can you see it? There we go. I probably won't do that again. I didn't like it. The pen, I didn't think, and part of it might be because it's on blue fabric, but I mean, I had to go over it and over it and over it to get it to show up at all. I just didn't like the way that it wrote or put on here. And I'm hoping, I've heard horror stories of it not washing out, and up here it's not full coverage. Like this, these windows, there's no other stitching up there. That's it. I mean, there's some back stitching, but that's just fabric. And I have grid lines there, so I hope they wash out. But lesson learned if not. So that's what I'm working on right now. I don't know, that's been getting most of my attention for the last couple weeks. I'm really enjoying it. I really want to see, I'm enjoying the progress I see on it. That's what I really like. Let's see. Next, well, while I was working on that, I was so frustrated, and I was on Pinterest. I was trying to find tips and tricks and techniques to help with your stitching to make it a little bit easier. And that's when I came across Flosstube just on accident. I think I had seen somebody who had put, you know, maybe a tag or something on there for a tip or a technique, and watched that, and then on the recommendations on the side, there was something else, and then there was something else, and I kept coming across the word Flosstube, and I looked into it, and I was like, oh my word, there's like all these people out here who do this. I thought I was, I don't know, weird. I don't know anybody else who cross stitches but my aunt, and you know, who wants to be young and act like their old aunt, right? So I never really thought about it. So that was really encouraging, and then seeing the variety of patterns that are available. I had never looked online, or I guess thought to look online. I mean, who would? If you go to the store, and every store you go to has the same style of, you know, cross stitch, and none of it is to your personal taste level, style. Yeah, it's just not my personal taste, and it's not my style. I wouldn't stitch it. Why would I go online and look for more of the same thing? So I never had, but then finding Flosstube and seeing all these pictures and art and cross stitch and everything, it just opened up so many doors. I was like, wow, there are definitely more patterns out there than I thought that would be interesting to me. So beads were something that really intrigued me. Heaven and Earth Designs. Everybody pronounces it a little bit differently. I say Hade. So I got some fabric, and I started my first one. I wanted to test it out before I went gung-ho and got a big BAP. So I started with one of their small freebie charts. So this is the beginning of Freebie Ice Princess. I'm going to insert a picture so you can see what it looks like when she's done. So this is where I'm at so far. And there's what, one more page over here. Let me see. This is about how far it goes. So a page and a half left. So that's it. I don't know. This one, I think I was brave enough to try it because I had seen all the parking videos, and I was like, that just made so much sense to me and would make it so much easier. I was afraid to try something this large with that much confetti in it. I mean, I was having trouble with the confetti in my small dimensions. So to try something this big with that many colors in it had me, I don't know, nervous. And the parking technique, I was like, that just made so much sense. Unfortunately, though, maybe that's just my choice in patterns. This is where I started. Can you see how many colors are in there? I mean, you can't really, because that's how good they are at charting their patterns. It blends nicely together. In one little 10 by 10 square, I think I had 23, 24 colors. I mean, every time I would thread my needle, I would make one stitch and then I would park it in the block below, because I was trying to do just 10 by 10 squares and work my way down. And I was just frustrated again. But I was like, you know what, this isn't working. I had to find another way to do it that would work for me. So I thought maybe about trying to do one color at a time, and that's where all the black came in. But as I was looking at it, I was like, there are a couple of colors I could do that with, maybe the white, but for the most part, there's too much confetti to do one color at a time. So I went back to parking, but I switched it up and I'm doing it my own way. Of course, that's the beautiful thing about cross stitch I'm learning. I start at the top of a page. I can't get a hold of them, but here. That's all of my thread from page 1. I've got it held up with a needle minder. But I will work that all the way down that 10 by whatever, all the way down. And then I will park it at the top of the next page at the bottom. And so these are all parked from these 2 pages. So, I guess that was 1, 2, 3, 4. That's page 5 and page, what is it, 9? So, I'll finish off these threads from page 1, finish them all the way down page 5, and then park on page 9, and then I'll go grab a different floss, and I will do the same thing. And then I use waist knots. Here, you can see them all. So once I finish filling that one in completely, I'll snip all those off. And all of my new waist knots are here. So these waist knots are actually from way over here. So I kind of like the way that doing the black first looks. I like the little owl. That's my favorite example. I've shown you guys like so many times and you're never going to see them because I deleted them. So let me show you again. Here's my little owl. And you can see right here is the line where he's completely filled in. He's nice and 3D. And over here is where I'm working and parking down right now. You can see just a couple little random stitches up in his head, around his neck. It's almost like you're coloring in a photo. And I really like to see it take shape. You know what it's gonna be, but to see the color and the dimensions show up in it, because when I stitched him, it was just an outline with the eyes and the beak. Everything else, I mean, even this, there might have been a couple of stitches there, but that, just the amount of dimension that you see in these patterns is amazing to me. So I kind of like, I think if I have any other patterns from Haid that have a strong black outline like this, I'm going to go ahead and do it the same way. I'm going to stitch all of the black. And then I will go through with this parking technique going all the way down the column with one color and then parking on the next page. So that's what I'm doing with this. I started this in September and I haven't picked it up, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe a month. I think one of the reasons for that is this fabric I chose. It's a 28 count I picked up at either Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I think it was Michael's. It's the MCG Textiles. I know you can't read it, it's backwards, but I'm sure some of you will recognize the label. It's called Antique White. I would definitely call it more of an oatmeal color though. Oh, and I'm shutting pull the hair off. Between me and my cat, oh my. Okay, here's the fabric. I think that's definitely more of an oatmeal. I really liked the different, you know, the colors in it. How splotchy it is. I really enjoyed that, but I think this is almost more of a linen because it's not really that even. I mean, there's a lot of, I call them schlubs. What do you call the little nubs? I call them schlubs. And then this fabric is so thick, it's almost more of a canvas. There's no stretch, no give to it, and the holes in here are teeny tiny. They're so close together, and I know it's a 28 count fabric. It's not going to have holes as large as an Aida. I wasn't expecting that, but it's almost like the threads themselves are so wide that in order to fit 28 stitches per inch, they had to weave them so close together that you can hardly see the holes. And when you're stitching it, it's not always easy to see where the next stitch is or to count them. So it's a brand I won't purchase again, but I'm not gonna start this project over. It's not that bad. So this is 2/1 tent stitch. Really good coverage. I have no complaints with the look of the finished design. I have noticed though a little bit, and I don't think it'll pick up on camera, the lines going down, which is another reason I thought, you know, doing the one color at a time would help get rid of it. And that's why I started doing the waist knots, because I thought if I was pulling the beginning and the ending threads across those lines, it would maybe help to cover up the vertical lines in it. So I'm gonna keep working on that and see how that turns out. I mean, I really don't, I can see it in person. I don't know that you'll be able to see it on camera. No. Yeah, maybe a little. So. And then I made 2 more needle minders. This is a little charm I picked up in the jewelry section. Again, it's supposed to go on a charm bracelet. It's a little turtle. Let's see if I can. There we go. A little bit of green on its back and some little rhinestones. That, can you see that? The little loop on its nose? That's where it's supposed to hook up to a charm bracelet. I don't have any tools to take it off with. It's pretty sturdy. It's on there pretty good. I would need some tools of some sort to take it off, but I kind of like it. It's almost like he's got a nose ring. It doesn't bother me. I left it on. And then my other one. Here we go. This was a pendant or something in the jewelry section. It's supposed to go on a necklace, I think. It was pretty big. It had jump rings right here at the top to connect it to the necklace, and then at the bottom from its tail it had a bunch of dangly, I don't know, decorative pieces of metal or something. I pried them all off and just stuck it on again with a rare earth magnet. But it says, spread your wings, catch your dreams. You can't read it, it's backwards, but I promise it has words in there. And then it's really 3D. You see that? So it's a little bit bigger, but the magnet's strong enough. I don't have any problem with it. So I use one magnet to hold my flosses out of the way while I'm stitching down the row up here. That just holds them all out of the way. And then this one will hold my needle, hold my pattern, whatever else I need. So. And then once I was brave enough to try Heaven and Earth, I decided to be brave and try some beading. I didn't want to go crazy and get some big, huge pattern. I've seen some of the Mirabilias that everybody's doing, and I was afraid to go that big. So I got a little kit. Just a little. Look at all the beads on there. I think the door is my favorite part. The only part of it I don't like is this charm they gave you for the door. It looks like a cheap plastic ring that would have been on my daughter's bracelet when she was 5. So I might try to find something else, a bead maybe, to go on there instead of a charm. Yeah, see how everything else is nice and shiny and sparkles, but that is just, even in the light, you can't really get a good image of it. It's not pretty. So I didn't like that. I shouldn't have put it on there, but it was part of the pattern, and I like to follow the pattern. So, it's not finished, but here's my back on that. It's pretty good. It looked a lot nicer before I did the beads. I kind of carried the thread around for the beads because I got tired of clipping it so often. I'm like, there's 4 red beads. That's it. I'm just going to drag my thread down here and do those. So, it was prettier before I did that. And then I did a biscornu. There we go. It's even got a couple needles in there. See? This one, I like it. I should have stuffed it a lot more. I thought it was nice and full, and it's not. My big problem with this one, though, not problem, but lesson learned, I guess, is these little stitches here I did. They've got that hole pulled open in the middle. And I was worried that, like, the stuffing or batting you put in the middle of it after I wanted this to be something that was used. I didn't want it to just sit and be pretty. I wanted it to be used. And I was worried that after a while, the stuffing and batting would start to come out through those holes. And I have that weird personality. I would sit there and pick at it and try to smooth it out and end up pulling all the stuffing out. So, trying to figure out how to solve that problem, I ended up putting interfacing all along the back of the stitches, and then just a piece of thin white cheap, I don't know, broadcloth or whatever you call it, that I had laying around the house to line it. So I'm not going to have any problems with that coming out, but it did make it hard to hold the button down and stitch it. And I've also noticed one day I'll learn how to speak English. I'm sorry. I also noticed that when I'm putting needles in, it's a little bit hard to get through there. So, I don't know. Do you have to worry about that? Does the stuffing come out through those holes? I mean, they're pretty small. But I was like, I put all that time and work and effort into it. I didn't want it to deflate when all the stuffing fell out. So, this might just be my, lesson learned. First time, it will be a decorative pretty. I mean, I use it occasionally. I don't do a lot of hand stitching. Not if I can help it. So, next time, I won't do that. No interfacing. Alright. One more project. This one's in the timeout pile. I haven't worked on it in like a month. I was so mad at myself. Not the pattern, at myself. It's AAN Magic Reindeer. I'll put a picture real fast so you can see what it'll look like when it's done. And here is what I have done. It's so close. You probably won't even be able to see what's wrong with it, but this fabric I purchased from 123 Stitch, so I'm not sure what it is. And I'm not really happy with it anyways. It's supposed to be an opalescent, white silver. You can't maybe see 1 or 2 sparkles. I think I see more sparkles on the camera than I do in real life. It's not obvious at all. It's not what I wanted. But it worked well enough. I mean, I've never done a project like this or ordered fabric online, so I wasn't too upset with that. I was okay with working around that. But this pattern is slightly taller than it is long. And this fabric is slightly wider than it is tall. So when I put it on here, I checked it and I double checked it and I triple checked it before I started stitching on it. And I still put it on there sideways. That would be the direction the fabric's supposed to go. So I knew it was going to be a close fit. I didn't have a lot of extra fabric, but that's how much extra I was supposed to have. That's 1.5 inches. And if I wanted to make this into a cushion or something, I would have enough for, you know, a 1/4 inch seam on here. Let me see. There we go. That's still plenty of fabric there between the stitches. I was okay with that. But then when you go down here to the bottom, it's not even finished. I have about 25 more stitches to go. It will go off the fabric. So I stopped when I figured out my mistake, and it took me this long to figure out that it was on there sideways, because this fabric is only like 1 inch and 2 inches different width and length. So I think what I'm going to do for this one is try to find a way to end the pattern myself, not too much farther below here, and his legs are just going to be shorter. And then I'll go ahead and do the back stitching and the beadwork. I don't know, maybe one of you guys can help me. I don't know if this is just AAN patterns in general, or if I have a typo on mine. But one thing I noticed here, sorry. Okay, again, it's going to be backwards. I know. I don't know if I can fix this or not, but here, you can clearly see that says one strand, and that's for full crosses, full stitches. Here, it clearly says the number 2, and this is for back stitches. Since when do you do a pattern with 1 single strand of floss for a full cross and 2 strands for the back stitch? So I went ahead and I stitched it 2 over 2. Here we go. And you can see it's got nice, great coverage. I would not take that down to 1 stitch. It would look horrible. It would look so bare. So I'm not sure if both of them are misprinted, if they got flip-flopped, if it's supposed to be 2, 1, but they printed it 1 and 2, or are they all supposed to be 2s? Should it be 2 for crosses and 2 for backstitch? I don't know. So when you guys backstitch an AAN pattern, do you use 2 strands or do you use just 1? I don't know. This is, I think, a 32 count. Is it a 36 count? It's a 32 count, I think. So, and I really like the fabric. I like the, I was complaining about the other 28 count. This one, I mean, look at it. You can see through it. The holes are nice and large. It's easy to stitch on, even being a higher count fabric. I enjoyed stitching on this so much more. So, like I said, I think it's just, I don't care for that brand, and I won't buy it again. No big deal. And then one slight modification I have made to the pattern already. It calls for only gold and red in the pattern. Because there's the red, his little nose. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. See? He's all in gold with the little red nose. So, I call him Rudolph. I know his actual title or actual name of the pattern is the Magic Reindeer. So, it calls for 3, 2, 1. Just basic red. And instead, I used Krennic. Never used it before, but Rudolph had a very shiny nose. So I needed very shiny floss. So this is something very fine, number 4 braid, number 003. Just in case I figure out how to flip the image around, I will put that on there. So the sparkle doesn't show up very much in person, or it doesn't show up very much on camera, but you can definitely see it in person. There we go. A little bit. So he's in timeout. I haven't wanted to deal with fixing the pattern, not fixing the pattern. The pattern was perfect. I didn't want to fix my mistake. So that's that. So those are really the only whips that I have. The only other item I have, I wouldn't even really call it a whip, but I was at Hobby Lobby and I went to look at their fabric just to see, you know, was all the fabric the same quality as that stuff at Michael's? And I found some white. And I was like, I've actually heard of that. People like that. I'm going to try that. So I got, this is antique white 25 count Lugana linen. And I decided to start Box of Delights. I don't know that I'm going to finish it. I know that I'm definitely not going to do the full 16 suites. And I was just playing around. I started that way too close to the edge, which is why I stopped at one thread and I didn't go on anymore. I'm going to rip this out and start it down more appropriately. But my plan is to do 1, 2, 3, 4 suites total on this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. Make a cute little sachet and fill it with some lavender, or that would make a gigantic biscornu. I don't know. Maybe make it the cover of a little notebook or something. I just wanted to see if I enjoyed the Blackwork. So I made it across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think that's just about done. I was about to go down when I said it's really so close to the edge. I need to stop. There's no point wasting my time. I need to fix that. So then it'll turn and go down, and then I will finish off the rest of the Blackwork when I come back the other direction. So one thing I was curious about, you know, because Blackwork, the whole point of it is the back looks the same as the front. And besides my starting thread I need to clip, that's my back. And it does. It looks just as good as the front. But I noticed on some of the suites, there is a little, like 1 or 2 stitches, and they're not connected to anything else. There would be no way to do them in this Blackwork style without dragging thread across the back of your work. So I'm going to put an example up real quick. Okay, now on this you've got those teeny tiny little black stars, and I was just kind of curious, do you guys start a new thread for each of those little Blackwork stars? And same thing with that red floss. If you look at it in the picture carefully, it's got like 1 stitch over and 1 stitch down, and then over a completely another square, but not touching anything, there's another like 2 stitches up, 2 stitches over. So in order to take your floss, you would have to take it from across the back of the work. So the front and the back don't look the same. Does that matter? I mean, for something like that, I normally wouldn't care, but I know the whole purpose of Blackwork is front and back. I mean, maybe not the purpose, but the novelty, the amazing part of it. I was just kind of curious. I think for right now, if I continue to work on this, I'll pick some of the suites that don't have quite as busy of a motif. It'll be a lot easier to, you know, pick something that's got, you know, zigzags or doodly lines or something. Pick a suite that's a little bit less complex to start with. So I'm not really counting this in my whips. I was just wanted to see if I enjoyed Blackwork. See if I wanted to continue on. I don't know that I would do the full, what is it, the full Blackwork journey, the Save the Stitches. It's beautiful. But then I'm like, what would I do with that big, huge piece? I can think of several uses or things I would do with something like this. But I was like, I don't know that I would hang that on my wall, a Save the Stitches, because it's huge. So, yeah, I might just stick with the Box of Delights, or it looks like they have a new one. Was it Pandora? Pandora's box. That one looked like it was smaller and simpler. So, okay, well, that's my stitching in a nutshell. I have everything spread out everywhere now. So I need to turn this off and try to do a little bit of editing, put in those pictures that I said I was going to put in, and clean up this mess. So I am actually in bed right now and I have everything spread out. This is one of my stitchy spots. After the kids go to bed, I like to come up in my room and turn on a movie and do some stitching and stay up for an hour or two, and that's kind of my quiet time, my downtime, my unwind. So I don't know, I've got Pitch Perfect on right now. It came on a little bit earlier, so I paused it on my DVR. So I'm going to turn that on, clean up this mess, and I'm going to get one of my whips out and start working on it and see what I can get done while I try to upload this video to YouTube. I'm looking at the time and I'm really worried about how many hours this is going to take. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm not typically a shy person, but I can't promise to answer every single question, but feel free to ask them as long as they're appropriate. Leave comments if there's anything you would like to see, if there's anything you would like me to explain better, if there's anything I rushed over or skipped. This is my first. Please say something so that I can change it for next time. So I'm looking around to see if I missed anything. I'm so sorry. I really feel like I am, but maybe that's just because this video is so short compared to my first one. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to say good night. Have a great stitchy weekend because it is Saturday for me here. So I've got all day tomorrow to do some more stitching. So I hope you guys get you plenty of stitching too. Bye-bye.